Honestly, there's nothing that we can trust. Ask questions on everything. Why do we place our ultimate trust in these big brands who are giving us these products? So when did that happen that they gained all this trust and credibility?
And you look at the companies that had the biggest cases of litigation for fraud and lying and deceptive conduct, it was the pharmaceutical industry. So I think the example was Johnson & Johnson. They were found, and I think they've gone through some legal, processes. They found that inside their skincare and sunscreen products, ingredients like benzene that are cancer-causing compounds that cause things like leukemia and other black blood sort of conditions. When you think about a big brand like Johnson & Johnson, a lot of people think of all their skincare, their moisturizers, their creams. About 5% of the company's revenue is from their skincare products. 66% of their revenue comes through pharmaceuticals. Again, some of their biggest sellers are the ones that treat those things, leukemia and whatnot.
Now, tap water, as I understood, I was always told Sydney water is the best water in the world. Like, I was told that. There was no conversations about chlorine and fluoride and anything like that. So America has currently better standards for their tap water than we do. The water was probably the one thing that I felt like I kind of took it personal. I was like, how have we been lied to? How can this happen? Like, that was the one that really smacked me in the face, and I kind of had that moment that I spoke about where I was like, everything's against us.
So obvious to me now. But I never realized up until probably 2 or 3 years ago, when you put like your normal sunscreen on, you think, okay, it's providing a physical layer against the sun. No, it's a chemical sunscreen. It's creating a chemical reaction in your body so you don't get burnt. That's wild.
All right, guys, welcome back. This is part 2 of my episode with Sandor last week. It's honestly probably the most explosive and controversial episode we've ever done, but just as more and more information comes out, it's getting harder and harder to ignore it. And as Sandor says in his podcast, ignorance is no longer bliss. Now, we'll get into the podcast in a second, but before we do, can I please ask for a few quick favors? If you're watching this video on YouTube, could you like this video and subscribe to that channel if you haven't already, and you're listening on Apple Podcasts or Spotify, if you could please leave me a 5-star review, I'd really appreciate it. Massive thank you and shout out to everyone that's been doing it lately. It doesn't go unnoticed. Thanks very much. Let's get into the pod.
Let's get into it, because I think, I was never this health whiz, health guru. I could eat whatever I want and not put on weight, right? But over the last probably 5 or 6 years, there was obviously a big event that happened. They started to wake people up around, what the world's really like. Let's talk about some of those things. And this isn't conspiratorial things. I'm just going to talk about specific products that we use in our lives.
And I think what's funny is that they are perceived as conspiracies.
Well, the one that's crazy to me, bro, I've got a few things that I wanted to talk to you about, and I'm really interested in this shit too. Yeah. I'm probably not nowhere near as educated, but I'm aware of this stuff, yeah? First one, sunscreens. Look at me, bro. I'm not like you. You could probably go to the beach for 4 or 5 hours and you'll come home golden brown. The problem with me, and I get it, the sunscreens like benzene and those sorts of cancer-causing ingredients, which are fucked. I get, the people that say you don't need sunscreen. That's what actually causes cancer, not the sun itself. I get that. I'll fucking burn if I go out in the sun for hours, yeah. But you gave an example. You reacted to a little video on this, and I thought, fuck, man. I sent it to my missus. It's really, really crazy. So again, we want to think about conspiracy, or is this just the way that the world is? Yeah. So I think the example was Johnson & Johnson. Yeah. And that company owns so many different brands across many different industries. So they were found, and I think they've gone through some legal, processes. They found that inside their skincare and sunscreen products, ingredients like benzene that are cancer-causing, like whatever you want to call them, like compounds that cause things like leukemia and other black blood sort of conditions, things like that. So when you think about a big brand like Johnson & Johnson, a lot of people think of all their skincare, their moisturizers, their creams. About 5% of the company's revenue is from their skincare products. 66% of their revenue comes through pharmaceuticals. And again, some of their biggest sellers are the ones that treat those things for leukemia and whatnot. We're not saying anything. I'm just talking about simple facts, yeah.
And there's so many people that are willing and advocating. Even if you look at, what's funny, people are, if they see a piece of content or a scientific paper, all of a sudden it's the holy grail. It's like, show me the double-blind placebo. So hang on, when did that become a thing? That any factual statement that you say needs this, and then there's obviously the rabbit hole of, well, who's funding the studies?
Who's funding the studies, exactly.
And then it became, and people who are very deep advocates of science, which I respect and understand, they will try and not shine a light on that and say that it's false and it's untrue, but it's pretty damning. And again, what's the reasoning behind it? well, it could be profit. It could be that we need to be sick. There's all of these different elements, you know what I mean? And the reality is it is unfortunate. I think there's massive truths behind a lot of it. And maybe you don't need to make all these extreme changes, but please at least be aware and do your research. Open your mind to be willing to be educated on both sides of the coin, you know what I mean? And why do we place our ultimate trust in these big brands who are giving us these products? Like, when did that happen that they gained all this trust and credibility?
And the companies that if you just put the last 5 years on hold when I feel like a lot of the world went mad, and you look at the companies that had the biggest cases of litigation for fraud and lying and deceptive conduct, it was the pharmaceutical industry. Now, all of a sudden, they're the ones that we trust. And you just look a little bit deeper. Okay, let's look at the studies. Who's funding the studies and what are they taking out of the studies and the results in the end of the day? So that's just a whole rabbit hole. You know, people will go down that at different points of time. We're not here to.
The comparison of different points of time generationally is also a nice argument.
Yeah.
Like once upon a time, we didn't have skin cancer.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So you kind of look at that and you go, well, what's the gap here? And it's these products. So I think all things in moderation. I don't believe that you can just be in the sun 24/7 getting burnt. Like surely that's going to become an issue. But getting sun exposure and not using these topical ointments and creams, I mean, I think it's pretty obvious.
Well, obviously, like you probably don't need to use sunscreen as much as me, but have you come across any good natural sunscreens that are more of a fit? And again, it's so obvious to me now, but I never realized up until probably 2 or 3 years ago, when you put like your normal sunscreen on, you think, okay, it's providing a physical layer against the sun. No, it's a chemical sunscreen. It's creating a chemical reaction in your body so you don't get burnt. That's wild.
Yeah, it is wild.
So yeah, you're giving your producer shaking his head like, what the fuck? That's just the way it is. And none of us understand these things. So there are natural sunscreens like that create a physical layer that blocks the sun. But the problem I've had with them is, bro, I don't want to go out with a thick, white, glowing, oily face. You know what I mean?
100%.
But that video that you reacted to, the worst part is, bro, the sunscreen I used was one of the little examples.
Oh, yeah.
I'm like, fuck, we're not good. I saw one that I've just ordered. It's like a beef tallow based sunscreen. And apparently I haven't got it yet, so I cannot confirm or deny. All the reviews are saying it actually dries down really well. But do you have any that you've come across that you can recommend or you think work well?
Well, as you said, I'm not the biggest user of sunscreen, but a good quality natural zinc is obviously going to be a good option. And then the beef tallow, I haven't used it, but I'm very interested because I'm consuming the same information. The reviews are amazing. So isn't it ironic if beef tallow ends up being the ultimate sunscreen protection? Like, how funny is that?
Oh, so I'll let you know. I'll let you know because I need to get off it. Yep. I've been trying to reduce my sunscreen, and since Europe as well, I don't know if this is the whole, the hole in the ozone conspiracy of Australia. The conspiracy, it's real, whatever. I was in Europe. I hardly used sunscreen and never got burnt. So obviously in Australia though, I get burnt all the time, but I've tried to I built up a little bit more tolerance from when I was in Europe last year. Obviously it's not visible. I don't have a tan, and I've been trying this year to use less and less sunscreen and spend more and more time in the sun. And I haven't got sunburn all year. So touch wood, there's something to it.
Yeah.
But that's one thing I wanted to speak to you about. Another one is deodorants.
Yeah.
Antiperspirants, right? Damn, this is another big one that's, my whole life I used this antiperspirant. It was the best thing ever. I never sweat. I never smell. Mitchum.
Oh, yeah?
48-hour protection, stacked to the gills with aluminium. And I knew about it for a little bit and I finally stopped and natural deodorants, I haven't found one that works. I still sweat. I don't really smell, but I still sweat a lot. And I want to go back to the old nasty stuff, but I can't put my body through it. What's your opinion on deodorants and antiperspirants and aluminium?
There's a brand, Noosa something.
Noosa Organics or maybe?
Yeah. It's a very popular brand.
Okay.
I don't think it's Coles and Woolworths yet, but it's a very popular brand. I use that. Now, I was the same as you. I grew up just a sweater, only in the armpits. For some reason, especially during my teens and early 20s, you'd go out and then you'd have the big ring. So I was a big user of deodorant. I was the female Rexona protection one.
See, the sprays are even worse. I was using the bar, like the cream and stuff. Yeah. The sprays, when I see people spraying, I'm just like, oh, bro, it makes my skin cool now.
Yeah, now even the smell of it, I'm put off by it. But yeah, there's no doubt.
And your lymph nodes are right in your underarms as well.
It's gross. The problem is that I find all of these things, they're put in that bucket of like, oh, that is a bit extreme. Change my deodorant, change my toothpaste. And the thing is, it's like, okay, well, what is this affecting? And we know that it's going to have an effect on you and your health, and it will compound into something. But is it tangible right now? If you spray the deodorant, do you have an issue when you walk out the door? No, you don't. So like, it doesn't hit as hard for people. If you can consume enough information and be educated, you start to realize that, well, maybe if I start to change this and then this and then this, like we have to believe that there is going to be an overall health benefit. And we don't know because it's not tangible. It might not be now. It might be in 5, 10, 15 years, but this investment is definitely worthy.
It's a long-term investment, but it's like you're gambling with your own life. If you have the information and then you still choose not to, then you've got no one else to blame. But I think if you've seen enough of the data, you've seen enough people speak about it, it gets really, really hard to ignore. And then, like you said, it's the reason that so many people don't is because if you change your diet, you'll feel the effects that week. So it's like, boom, I'm going to stick to it. This other stuff, you know, some people will never get any issues from it. You know what I mean? So people want to take that gamble, but you're gambling the ultimate price.
Yeah, honestly, you have to question everything. It's it's toothpaste. It's water now. Water.
Well, that's another one on my list.
Do you know what I mean? Yeah. So I've been using the roll-on of the Noosa Organics.
I'll have a look at that. I wrote the Noosa.
I've been using that. It's good. I do feel like there is a transition period, so you do have to stick that out, but it ends up having an effect. Like I'm arguably on the move. I'm training all day. And once you get through that phase, you are releasing toxins through your armpits. So you will notice once you start to make some of these changes, you don't smell the same way you did. Like it's definitely noticeable. So that's one big shift, and it doesn't become as much of a problem. And the need for constant deodorant to cover the smell and the BO, it's not there.
Well, you know what? I got off the hard stuff, the aluminium-based antiperspirants after Europe last year. I'm like, if we're going to Europe, I'm going to be fucking out. I'm just going to, I'll go out on top. And then came back, and I've been off it for a whole year now, a little bit more than a year. And I've tried different ones. And the thing is that burns me, and I've literally, it's the one thing out of all these things we'll talk about that is causing me the most actual discomfort or inconvenience in my own life, the sweating. I never used to sweat, never used to think about it. I don't know what's happened, if it was like 29 years of build up of putting that shit under my arms, that it literally taking a whole year to detox, but I never had any redness, any like swollen lymph nodes while I was on it. But this year, periodically, depending on which natural deodorant I'd been using, I'd get little like sweat rashes and then swollen lymph nodes, and it's been hurting. I'm like, bro, was I better off before it? But you know what's even better for me? I probably only use deodorant 2 days a week now. I'll try and not use deodorant, and I swear to God, it's better. I sweat less when I don't have anything on.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, again, if I wasn't working with people so closely, I would probably not pay as much attention to it. But my missus actually influences me a lot in terms of this health stuff, like goes next level. Like I've always had the nutrition, but I've always been a bit more of a performance perspective, but she's changed everything from the lights in the house to the toothpaste to the water to everything. So she started off trying to get me on the paste, and I'm like, I'm not rubbing that shit in my underarms. So I found the Noosa Organic roll-on, and it's worked out all right.
What lights do you have in your house? What was the change you did there?
Well, the big change was once the sun goes down, we can't just have all these fluorescent lights on in the house. So first thing we did was we bought these, they're like clip-ons, and you can place them around the house, and it was red lights. So
you see Lucas, his apartment yesterday, red lights around the whole thing.
I mean, mate, I'd definitely be doing that. If I could have a switch where it's basically normal light and red light, and I could transition between day and night, that would be the dream.
Even for the people, and this wasn't something I did based on any health, things like that. And obviously there's a lot of studies about the benefits of red light. But like, see like how that's like a bright, like that's a key light, right? I would never fucking have something like that in my house. I don't understand how people have those white fluoro lights in your house. Get at least the warm tone lights. Yeah. And we changed all the lights to warm tones, but we even hardly use the ones on the roof, just like mood lighting with lamps. Watch your mood improve.
Yeah.
Those fluorescent bright white lights, they put people on edge, bro.
So true, honestly.
Environment, we were talking about before, environment is such a big influence on your mood and the way you feel. I'm telling you, go from fluorescent lights to warm yellow lights, and don't even use them at night. Like try have like soft lights and lamps around the house and use that. And I'm telling you, your mood will improve.
And then you think about like in a corporate setting, like the environment that they're in, and it's like, it's the constant battle and the massive investment in health and wellness. And we're looking for the big ticket items, the big motivational speaker, all these different things. What if we just change a couple of these environmental things, but they're not normalized?
Yeah.
They're seen as left field. You know, it's strange, but that's just where we're at right now.
But look at the people setting the rules. Like, have you seen around the world what all these health ministers look like?
Oh, how good's that content? It's just is that not the biggest piss take you've ever seen?
Oh, dude, it's hilarious. It makes me laugh.
And
Like,
it's funny, but like obviously not many of us put a face to the name of like the health minister. Like I couldn't tell you who the Australian health minister is. But
I don't know anyone by name, but I've seen all of the.
But then you look at them and like you just have to sit there and realize and take a second and be like, well, actually, that's the person in charge of making the decisions in regards to health and funding for health. It's a fucking joke.
It's a joke. And they'll demonize anyone that wants to go against that narrative. Like, look at Joe Rogan. Like, he just does his own thing. They will demonize him and make him seem like the most crazy conspiracy theorist in the world. And often a year later, he's proven to be right?
Well, look at the movement in America. Like, it's pretty cool what's going on there. And again, there's a big rabbit hole to go down there, and it's the Trump side, but it's JFK who's starting that Maha movement.
Make America Healthy
and
again.
Like, he's onto it.
I love him. He's cool.
I
mean, I don't know all of his policies and whatnot, but he's seems a little bit different. Yeah.
And what he's trying to push is the things that we're talking about. Like, it's genuinely, and it's attacking industries. It's attacking all the stuff, the legislation and the things that are like blatantly obvious, but again, haven't been normalized. But think about that battle. You're going against all of these corporates, companies and brands. There's a lot to lose, but I respect it.
I respect it as well. I think if they can get in and they can like actually like winning is like the election is one thing. But if RFK and they can actually make these changes, which is going to be a massive battle because the way these things are all set up is to never lose power, and it'll be a massive effort. But I think it would be a very good thing for the world to experience. I think some of this revolution, it's been twisted. Like, I'm a very big believer in capitalism, right? But the reason people hate capitalism and they try and portray that on everyone, and there's this whole, bro, I live in Newtown. I see all these signs for socialism and all this shit. I'm like, oh, bro, you guys, if only you knew. Anyway, like, it's the problem about capitalism is the 0.0001% that are setting all these things up that we're talking about now. It's not the, mum and dad business owner with a small business. It's not even the person who starts an e-com brand and makes $50, $100 million a year. It's that top of the food tree. That's the problem. Now, the scary thing is, if you're living in the US, and obviously most of our listeners are Aussies, but what you spoke about before, I used to do what all athletes do, eat muesli bars.
Yeah.
You read a muesli bar in Australia, it's probably got like 8 to 10 ingredients. Not great. There's obviously going to be some form of seed oils in there and inflammatory ingredients, but that's one thing. I was last year when we went to Europe, we randomly flew via LA and we did a couple of days there. They gave us a K-time bar on the plane, yeah? I flipped that around. 40 fucking ingredients. It looked like it was a chrome cleaner, all the different chemicals and compounds. 40 ingredients on a K-time bar. I took a photo of it. I'll send it to you after. Wild. So this is the stuff that RFK is talking about. Like, he's not going to get rid of seed oils completely, even though, he speaks out pretty openly against that stuff. But the stuff that they allow, the red and blue food colorings and all that stuff, bro, they should be in jail for poisoning their people.
It's insane that it's allowed. And again, it's taking so much and such a big movement to try and fight against that. They always reference the European standards because I think it's like night and day compared to America, but it's ridiculous. Like, I don't know. And to think that something so significant from the left has to come across and make this mainstream. Like, I just don't understand it. It's kind of, when you think about it, sometimes it's really disheartening. It's kind of sad. Like, there's nothing, honestly, there's nothing that we can trust. And I don't say that to try and be an extremist. I say, like, ask questions on everything. And even with my Instagram, and, people will come on and I try and just have this little diplomatic approach, but like, just question everything. I'm just having a discussion. Just, well, what about, what about this? What do you think about this? And, it could be an influencer, it could be science, but what's your thoughts on this? Just open your mind up, have a little look into it. And there's some pretty damning stuff that if you consume it, changing a belief system, you need to stack evidence though. So people need to understand, like, is COVID not the biggest example? Like, I know that's gone under the rug and he's trying to bring it back up, obviously, because some of the evidence and some of the facts around that matter. But if you just take a little moment to reflect on that whole process and what's now come to light, the fact that all of these illnesses have come and that it's now banned, like, come on. It doesn't take a genius. And that's enough evidence to maybe be like, well, maybe I should look at this, and then maybe I should look at that, and not just trust that everyone has our best interests at heart, because it's not the case. And how it happened, why it happened, that's probably another big rabbit hole. But we're at the point where you personally do need to take control, because it isn't mainstream. These conversations, these discussions, and these perspectives on certain things, mostly the things that we consume, you kind of have to take charge and be like, well, maybe this isn't beneficial. Maybe I should try this. And there's no harm in trying some of these things. What have you got to lose?
Just a quick one from me. If you've been listening to the podcast for a while, you'd know that after scaling Happy Skin Co. to over $10 million per year, I spent close to 18 months creating the Viral Brand Builder program, which teaches someone with zero experience how to launch and scale their very own e-commerce brand. With over 100 training videos and direct access to me, including one-on-one calls, you'll be guided throughout the entire process. Now, we already have a bunch of incredible results from students that are making multiple 5 and 6 figures per month. So if you want to learn how to build a business that has the potential to completely change your life, then click the link in the description and book in an application call today. Spots are limited, as you'll be speaking directly to me. So hopefully I'll chat to some of you soon. But until then, let's get back to the podcast.
100%. And I'm the type of person, I'm never going to tell anyone what to think or how to think or what to believe. But like you said, I think the problem is on both sides of the argument. Too many people, you will say, this is how it is and that's a fact.
Yeah.
Where we're just saying, just question, just think about it, just look into it, form your own opinions. Don't take every word I say for gospel. Don't take every word you say for gospel.
Oh, mate, I'm no scientist.
Exactly.
We're
just saying.
Yeah,
we're just fucking saying, have a look, right? There's a lot of things. And I think if you're still walking with your eyes closed in the back end of 2024, where we are now, it's a choice. Yeah. You're choosing to believe the narrative because it's easier.
Yeah.
And you don't want to break down all those walls and realize the way the world really is.
You're so right. And I used to have the conversation around ignorance is bliss. Ignorance isn't bliss anymore, in my opinion. Ignorance is bliss if like you refer to ignorance as bliss as like someone who's completely unaware. And the things that we're talking about, because they don't know, it doesn't affect them. But unless you're in captivation or you're in some faraway place where even then you're still eating good foods and you're living off the land and like that's different. But ignorance is bliss in the commercial world that we live in. It's not. It's not. If you don't know what you don't know, it's a problem. And if to be unaware in this day and age is an issue.
And people only don't care when it doesn't affect them. But the way a lot of these things are going, it's getting very close to affecting all of us all the time.
And why wait and make the mistake that you know you're going to make? Because why does it need to take for you to get sick, have a horrible illness, reach a major adversity for you then to go, oh, well, now I'm going to look. There's enough information out there, enough discussions to be had to see, well, maybe I should get on the forefoot, be a bit more proactive, and maybe I should look into a couple of these things. Maybe it's not as black and white as I've always been told.
Exactly. And the really scary thing, I'm not sure if you've seen much of this online over the last few weeks. It's been in the news, but the bill that the Albanese government introduced, the Combating Misinformation and Disinformation bill, the problem with that, well, for one, it doesn't apply to politicians. Essentially, they're saying anything that we say, the official narrative says is fact. If you go against that and there's 30 pages of vague legal writing so they can say this is harmful or this, pretty much they've written it to be so vague that anything that they say that they don't want to be out there, they can censor you first step. And then if you keep going, then they can jail you. Right? The people, if you look back at history, and that's the crazy thing, it's like I had a conversation with someone who was running for the city of Sydney local government elections we had before. And he said, over the last 15 years, I've gone from the left to the supposed far right standing still. My values haven't changed, but there's been this big, crazy shift in what we believe. And if you look back historically, the people that have censored free speech have always been on the wrong side of history. So in a free world, in a free open market, ideas need to go up against ideas and be spoken about, and the best ideas and the truth will win.
Yeah,
you can't, and like the amount of things, just looking at that example, what we went through 4 or 5 years ago, things that were a conspiracy theory, whether it be a year, 6 months, 18 months, 2 years down the line, were proven to be 100% correct. But people could have been jailed under this new legislation, this new bill they're trying to put forward by going against the official narrative. Regardless if you're on left side or right side, whatever, you should have a massive problem with that.
Yeah, I agree.
It's scary to think that, bro, it's Orwellian stuff playing out right now.
100%. And that problem, that's not going anywhere.
No,
And unfortunately, I just don't see anytime soon everyone coming together with a discussion mindset and perspective.
I really hope
it's
we
really
do.
Unfortunate. It's a big disservice to any creativity, any opportunity, any development, any growth. But yeah, there's a few people in the right spaces and the right positions trying to pioneer it at a high level.
Yeah.
Probably not hyper relative to Australia, but yeah, it's a wild time.
I think, I think it's really important that we have people that have the courage to speak out against these things, because the silent majority, you know how it works. Everyone's just doing their own thing, and I get it. I'm busy with my life. You're busy with my life. Who are we? We're not here campaigning to change the world. But once they take your rights and your freedoms, it's a lot harder, if not impossible, to take them back. So I think we need to be aware with what we're walking into. Something else I had on my list that you mentioned as well, water. Tell me your relationship to tap water, and if you still drink it or when you stopped.
Well, just what a crazy concept. I mean, once upon a time, I think there's a large portion of our life where we don't get to dictate what we do. And that's at the age that we are, that's pretty much the majority. Now, tap water, as I understood, I was always told Sydney water is the best water in the world. Like, I was told that. There was no conversations about chlorine and fluoride and anything like that. So, I drank tap water for the best part of my whole life. Started to get exposed to it, probably still didn't put a lot of care and attention into it. This is only a very new journey. I did a post recently, which you may have seen.
I probably saw.
Yeah. So this was someone else's content that I tapped into, and there was firstly a media representation in Australia, and it was speaking about the water quality. Now, America has currently better standards for their tap water than we do for some of these key chemicals. I've heard things like, even the big change that I made, tap water was my first one, right? But then it was, well, hang on, what about every day where I'm showering. For, 10, 15 minutes? So that was the next one, had to change the filters.
I haven't done that yet, but I definitely need to.
You kind of have to, you know what I mean?
Skin's your largest organ, so much of the water.
Exactly. Transdermal is far greater effect as well. So that's another thing that's really important. But to understand the quality, the water was probably the one thing that I felt like I kind of took it personal. I was like, how have we been lied to? How can this happen? Because water's probably the one thing, if you're going to place trust in something, it's water. And I've actually lived in countries where you can't drink the water. You know what I mean? So it's a little bit different, but that was the one that really smacked me in the face. And I kind of had that moment that I spoke about where I was like, everything's against us. What do we do?
People listening to this, if they hadn't been hyper aware of this stuff yet, they're like, I can't wear sunscreen, I can't drink water, I can't eat food. Unfortunately, and that's where it goes back to, if you just need to trace the money back up, who's in control of all these things and why. And
unfortunately, what we can't do is we can't have faith in big corporations who are mass producing products aimed at these certain areas. Let's put aside what the end game is, both financially and their connections to illnesses and all that. Let's put that aside, but just understand that mass production of these products is always going to lead to a lower quality and some detrimental outcome.
100%. And for the people,
that's food, that's products, that's water.
And it doesn't, none of us, me or you, no one listening to this knows the true intentions of the people up the top making these decisions. It might be for this really, dark reason, but probably not. Maybe it's cheaper and there's more margin in it when they do it that way. And then you talk about a lot of the additives they put in foods to make people more addicted. It's, let's just say it's all about profit. Maybe it lays deeper than that, but we don't even have to go there.
And it's not relevant.
It's not relevant
on the ground level.
All we can do is control what we eat and put in our own bodies and our own families' bodies. Another one, as you saw downstairs from the studio, there's a dentist. I remember I was getting a little fucking checkup and gets out the fluoride thing. I'm like, whoa, bro, what are you doing? He's like, oh, you're one of them. I'm like, nah, man, but I'm 30. I'm almost 31 years old. Never had a feeling. So fuck you,
That's
bro.
mad.
You don't need fluoride.
Now this is a common conversation, and we've seen a lot of content come out, and this is actually being widely accepted. GPs, right? We've put our total faith and trust in these guys for a long period of time. Now, my probably first reflection with GPs was understanding that you can't go to them for advice outside of being prescribed a medication. And that's not a knock at GPs. You've heard them detail, I've heard them come out and say, I have not been trained to give nutritional advice. I've not been trained in X and Y. I've been trained in medicine to prescribe medicine. Now, you'd have to align the dental industry. They have been trained on a certain thing, educated on a certain perspective and ideology. Now, I've been using natural toothpaste for the best part of a few years. Now, I know I've got my lovely veneers, but outside of that, that's a pivot that I made. But I kind of aligned, just when you said that, the connection between the dental surgeons or dental doctors and our common GPs just trace back the education, and they've only been educated on a certain way. So many things are changing, whether it be the lipid theory around cholesterol, cardiovascular health, dentists, naturopathic medicine, like all of these things are starting to come out, and it's becoming mainstream even at the level of a doctor and a dentist. I mean, the scary thing with the dentist thing was like, they're saying, have you heard the thing about root canals?
No, tell me.
Like getting a root canal is essentially like basically the poison and it maintains the bacteria in the tooth. And to say like we shouldn't even be getting root canals. And I was like, oh, that really fucking threw me as well when I heard that. Just like, again, it's not to create fear. It's just like, I think if we can drum one outcome out of this conversation, the statement is question everything. Just question things.
Have you seen the video? I think it's gone viral a couple of times. I don't think it's super new. You might have seen it. If not, it'd be a really good video for you to do one of your reactions to Dana White talking about, if I break my arm, I'll go to the doctor.
Yeah.
If it's anything to do with anything of that, they know absolutely nothing, yeah?
I think if you got most of them aside, I honestly believe they'd be kind of willing to admit that.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave you another example. Lockie was a great example.
Yeah.
Like, in what world would you go to a doctor for a gut disorder and him not ask you one question? What have you been eating? What? Like what?
And I was looking at Lockie's page as well when I was doing a bit of research. He's like stronger than he's ever been. He's running marathons. His energy levels are better than he's ever been. He doesn't have pain. He doesn't have inflammation, no psoriasis on his skin.
Crazy,
just from
bro.
and I think a lot of it as well, like I've been veggie for 5 years. I'm not out here telling people to only eat meat. But like you said, if nothing else for the elimination diet of all the putrid stuff that we've been talking about now, go back to that point, reset, and then figure out, test, okay, what can my body tolerate?
Yeah.
Something crazy as well, we just mentioned cholesterol. This is one thing that I've only recently started to come across and they've demonized cholesterol so much, right? And it's really bothered me on a personal level because there's a lot of research coming out about the lack of cholesterol and being one, and the lack of cholesterol, I'm probably not using the right terminology, but leading to Alzheimer's and dementia. Now, my grandfather, my granddad on my mum's side, his dad lived to 99, his mum lived to 93. We thought he was going to live at least until his 90s. He died when he was 81, unfortunately. He lived 5 years with Alzheimer's. He had perfect health. The only drug he'd been on for 6 years, for like 10, 15 years, was cholesterol-lowering medication and butter. And he had Alzheimer's took him.
Sad, isn't it? Cholesterol is essential. We need cholesterol. And as you mentioned, for brain function.
Brain function, yeah.
Like, I do think there is a movement. Again, we've got, even within that guide, again, I'm not a doctor to give medical advice, but we've got some great resources from trusted professionals on cholesterol, giving a differing opinion. Cholesterol is, and I'm happy to put it in that bucket of financial gain. The statin drugs, like what would be the revenue? Billions of dollars. And you know how easy it is? Like if your cholesterol's elevated, statin. Like, come on, man. Cholesterol in itself, total cholesterol, is not a true marker and representation of cardiovascular health. You have to reference your cholesterol and the ratio of LDL and HDL. Triglycerides is the one key thing that you want to focus on. Now, eating the way that I do, you are going to have some elevations in cholesterol. And if you went to the right or the wrong person, you're going to get two very different perspectives. Cholesterol is essential, but I encourage you, if there's one topic, do your research, dive a little bit deeper, and ask some questions.
So with cholesterol, I know that's been demonized from mainstream medicine for a long time. What were they saying is the risk in it? Is it like fatty buildup and heart attacks? Is that sort of where they're going?
Heart attacks, cardiovascular health. Straight away, increase in total cholesterol, bang.
Yeah.
The instant. And like this has been such common practice. Most people have taken statin. Obviously at a certain age, it becomes a lot more prevalent, but for that to be the go-to is insane.
And the problem, I'm not sure if this is how it works in Australia. You might know a little bit more than me, but definitely in America, you know how they say, yep, boom, elevated cholesterol statins. They're getting fucking kickbacks for the drugs that they're putting their patients on.
Yeah.
That's sick. That system is so wrong. I don't know if it's like it here. I've got no knowledge, but I know for a fact that that's how it works in America.
I definitely think there has to be an element of that.
So like people, like sales reps will go with a new drug that's a lot safer and they'll say to they'll go into their doctors and try and the people that they're working with have said, yeah, look, that might work, but like, why would I recommend that when I make no money from that and I'm like making a killing off these. Like the system is
I had
really
an example
strong.
the other day, and I'm sure you're privy to all of the GLP-1s, the Ozempics and all this sort of stuff. Now, I initially was a little bit like, whoa, my initial response was like, no way.
Mm-hmm. What is Ozempic? I know what it is, but how does it work?
Basically what it's doing.
It's an injection, yeah?
Yeah, what it's doing is it's cutting your hunger cravings to a ridiculous level. So what I've found is, and from the research that I've done, my perspective initially was like, no, we shouldn't be taking this shortcut for fat loss because fat loss, if you just make a few changes, blah, blah, blah. But on this end of the scale, people who are right on the end of the spectrum who are, say, obese, why do we have to? Because it's a relatively safe drug. It comes as a diabetic medicine, right?
Okay.
So in terms of like, let's not rely on discipline to get from A to B out of a range of obesity. Taking this drug that can reduce habits, completely eliminate cravings, and taking someone. Now, are there symptoms? Yes. Do we have to be mindful of certain things? Increasing protein, maintaining resistance training? Yes. But that there is a method and a use for that. Now, the test case, the reason I bring this up is I was speaking to a client who is in that obese range, went to the doctor, asked for this based on her own research and other people who she knows who have gone through the same process, pushed away, did not want to medicate it, and advised her to the point where she nearly did it to get a gastric sleeve. Now, the gastric sleeve is a $15,000, $20 investment surgery. The linkage between that doctor and the surgeon and the price, and not just allowing a candidate who is obese to take a simple drug for X amount of time, like that kind of blew my mind. That was recent. I was like, and on that topic, I was like, wow.
Really upsetting, hey?
Bro.
It's so upsetting. But what's the answer to this? We can have problems with it, but it's like, who's gonna change this?
It's power to the people, kind of like, and again, like we're not saying that as a group, everyone's going to stand up, and you can perceive all this conversation as extreme, but at the end of the day, like just take back a little bit of control. Why do you have to rely on your information coming from another source or a trusted source?
If this information seems extreme and crazy to you, like let me just say 5 years ago, it did to me too. Everyone starts that.
Yeah, it was in that bucket.
You think that, and then like I had mates that were like a couple years ahead of me on all this stuff because they were doing. I only dealt with this when it started to really be pushed in front of my face and really affected me, and I realized, hey, if someone has the power to lock me in my house and say I can't leave 5 kilometers from my life, I'm going to start questioning shit then, bro. If you're trying to make me take something and, gaslight the whole world and manipulate the whole world into taking something and trusting the most corrupt industry in the whole world, come on, bro. You got to be pretty, gullible to not ask any questions. There's no disrespect. A lot of people fell for that, and I know they now regret it, and no judgments, but it's like, you can take control of your life whenever you want, right? Just starts with asking questions, like you said. Another one on this list, I only made this change in the last year as well. You're going to laugh at me. Margarine was the healthier option when I was growing up. And I thought, butter, why am I going to eat all this fat? Margarine's so much better for you. It's healthy. It's seed oils. It's from plants. It's from seeds. How is that bad? Let's discuss. Talk to me about your knowledge and experience with margarine and butter. And
yeah, again, it's like processed, unprocessed. Just put it down into those two categories.
Ultra-processed, man.
You know what I mean? And again, when we were growing up at our age, low fat was very much the propaganda that was pushed. We were supposed to stay away from it. Everything was low fat. How everything's protein now? Everything was low fat. On every product has got protein in it somehow, because that is the ultimate clickbait and marketing for any product or brand. Even I seen the other day, is it Halo Top? I think it is.
The ice cream?
Yeah. They had this shitty thing. And then when they changed it to say the calories and everything else, like calories, protein. But when we were growing up, low fat was on everything. And what are we supposed to believe? We're influenced. I'm influenced now.
Yeah.
But back then, like we only know what we know and the information that we're given. So yeah, two very different scenarios. Processed, unprocessed is first. Quality of source. And then the vegetable and seed oils, again, I'm very in this space and consume information from some high-level people who have a scientific background and are doing the research. Is there this damning, overwhelming evidence of consumption of seed oils is going to do X and Y? I don't know that there is yet, but what I can say is when I have seed oils and I eat it, it fucks me up and my guts are ruined. So it's like I can take the information, contextualize it, and then I can apply it to my own scenario. It's night and day.
100%. And as I said, I pushed back against this for a while. Only in the last year, I've made the switch to butter. And when I did make that switch, it took me and my stomach maybe a few weeks to adjust because I felt like, for me, because when I was like training a lot at the gym, my diet, like I say, I never put on weight, but I was really strict on my diet. I was high protein, high carb, like carbohydrates, but low sugar, low fat.
Yeah.
Right. So I never had like a lot of fats in
bodybuilder diet.
Yeah, in my diet. So it took a little bit of time for my stomach to get used to it. And I always thought, this doesn't really agree with me. But now I would never go back. Right. And one of the best snacks, my mate, who's the one of that, like, who's taught me a lot of this stuff, legit, maybe a month or maybe a couple months before you started sharing on your stories, bro, the best snack treat you can have is a date with a little sliver of butter in the middle. Bro.
That's crack.
How good is it, bro? Who's been gatekeeping that shit all these years, man?
And if you like salted caramel, that's pretty much what I would explain it as.
100%. Is there any other thing? Obviously, you're way more educated than me. We've had a lot of these conversations. Again, check your toothpaste ingredients. If you have fluoride in it, have a little look into that. With the butter thing versus butter versus margarine, again, everyone's like, a lot of people are saying it does cause a lot of inflammation. Just look at the process that, margarine goes through from the seed oil process to putting it all together. And it'll make you realize, holy shit, bro, that is some unnatural, extremely processed thing. Like, we don't know.
What's the reasoning?
Cost?
What's the reasoning for it? That's all we have to go down to. And I do continue to put things in the bucket. Mass production causes these issues because when you need to mass produce something, obviously it needs to be processed. Not only is quality going to go down, but to keep things, not only mass production, but longevity of products. Things aren't supposed to last forever. You know what I mean? So this is where we get ingredients and additional things. And at the end of the day, it's unnecessary. Whole foods is a great perspective to take, and it's defined by single ingredient foods.
I don't think anyone, I'm not subscribing to any specific thing. Do you want a tissue?
Yes, thank you, brother.
Okay, cool. I was like, what are you looking at me for? Thank you for being observant, Yui. I don't think anyone can fucking argue against the whole foods thing.
Yeah.
Like, eat with fruits or vegetables or meat, whatever, but eat whole foods. I think you're going to be a lot better.
And that's not even really eliminating or segregating a heap of foods.
It's just all the bullshit. Obviously, we could speak about diet and everything a lot, but I think the whole approach you have to health and wellness and mindset is really cool. So to touch on some other things, as I mentioned, like you're on that screenshot, I paused your video, looked at your thing, your heart rate variability maxed out on one particular month at 253. What goes into a heart rate of variability of 253 or over 200? Because I know you're a professional athlete for a lot of your life. But even I don't see many professional athletes with heart rate variabilities, anything near that.
Yeah, no. So about 3 years ago, HRV definitely wasn't as popular as it was now. It hadn't been spoken about. It wasn't a data point that was used in a performance setting in a professional athletic environment. So I might have heard about it, but not really. Now it's obviously very popular. So about 3 years ago, there's a mentor of mine, Leo from the Gold Coast, and he's obsessed with data. Right. And I am too now. And I was wearing my Oura ring and he goes, "Oh, you wear your Oura ring?" I say, yeah. And the guy I was with knew that I have a high HRV, but again, there wasn't much context. I said, "Oh yeah, I got a pretty high HRV." And at the time it was over 300. So I know.
What?
So I said, "Oh yeah, because he was going on. He's actually this super fit, legendary 60-year-old. And he was like, I've got a high HRV, blah, blah, blah. He's a legend. And I was like, "Oh yeah, well, I got a pretty high HRV. Anyway, showed him and he just nearly fell off his chair. He's like, "I've never seen this."
You're the highest I've ever seen, genuinely.
And when I dug deeper into HRV, like it is the ultimate stress and resilience score and it has different applications, but it is a great reference point for where we're at, our what we should be doing in terms of our output, our activity level. It can be an injury marker, obviously stress, but it's a very powerful data point that does have a lot of practical use even now with athletes, but it's something that we should all look at. I don't know how popular it is. Probably the gap is, I don't think it's a big data point on like an Apple Watch, which most people have. Obviously it's a big thing for Whoop and Oura and some of those other data points. But yeah, once I understood it, obviously I was proud of it. I kind of reflected it back to, first, all I had to pin it on was my mindset. I figured, well, it's this stress and resilience score. is it the way, and resilience is obviously how you react to certain things. And that's a big part of my life. Altitude training, then I was like, well, this has to have been having an impact. And there's research around that it does have a positive impact, going back to because you're exposing yourself to a stress. So you're building up that ability, that resilience, that tolerance. So those kind of things, that's kind of what I pinned it down to.
I think again for you, because you do a lot of breath work, right?
Yeah, I do.
So I last year I found out I had ADHD. Like I went and did a proper diagnosis. Yeah, I know, but like I went and actually got diagnosed, and one of the because he said like, do you want to jump on medication or anything like that? I'm like, no, I'm not really interested. I just wanted to know. Like I wasn't going to change anything. It made a lot of things make sense about my life, and again, I wouldn't change it for the world because it's my superpower. It genuinely is. But one of the like best things for managing your ADHD is it was like a psychologist gave me like this breathing routines and it's like called heart rate variability breathing, and just your breath and these certain breath work patterns that you can do really improves your heart rate variability. If you've got a higher heart rate variability, it helps with things like ADHD because your central nervous system's so much calmer and more relaxed as well. So you've kind of built all these random little things and stacked them together and created this ultimate fucking, like you said, resilience, performance, health protocol, and you're living proof of the benefits.
And, you know, the reason I'm passionate about this is because I am no guru, rocket scientist. I'm no better or different to anyone else. These things that we're talking about, the practical things that you mentioned, the mindset related things, the perspective and perceptions that I have, I honestly believe this is attainable for everyone. That's why I'm so passionate. If it wasn't, there's no way I would be so passionate and try and push this stuff onto the general population that are people I work with. And most of it is mindset related, like shifting your perspective and a few other things around acceptance, ownership. Like this is life-changing shit. Don't worry about the toothpaste in your water. Like you stay right here and watch your whole world change. Breathing's a really funny one, bro. Like we take 25,000 breaths a day. No one talks about breathing. It's the number one tool we have at our disposal. And as simple as, obviously in our controlled stress environment, I use this a lot and we have to use this, but something as simple as we commonly, or most of the time, we're taking short breaths, we're mouth breathing. Simply by breathing in through the nose, you trigger your parasympathetic nervous system just by doing that. Like you are in control of that. And it's arguably one of the only ways that we can do that. How powerful, how crazy is that? But no one would really understand what parasympathetic is, and you can dumb that down to relax, rest, and digest. But how have we never been taught that we have a tool at our disposal to relax ourselves, bring ourselves out of a state of stress, calm our nervous system by doing this? Like how wild is that? And how did I consume that information at 32 years old? So my first example, and I talk about this all the time, we had a breath coach at the Melbourne Storm. It's becoming increasingly popular. She was from the All Blacks and she would do a few different breath techniques. And at that time, I'll be honest, I was like, yeah, cool. It was like a bit
this
hippie.
woo-woo stuff.
Yeah, it was like, whatever. Yeah, I get it, but didn't really care. I'm an idiot. Like I remember sitting in a room and, you know, when she's pointing people out and you put your head down, she pointed at me. She goes, have you ever thought about how you breathe? And I said, fuck. It was like a ton of breaths. I was like, no. She's like, and she said, so you breathe 24 hours a day and you've never thought about how you breathe? I was like, no. And at that time, I hadn't thought about breathing for performance, to recover faster, to calm myself down. I hadn't thought about breathing in a high stress situation. I hadn't used it for meditation and I hadn't used it as a practice. And I just couldn't believe the missed opportunity that I had, because like other things in our life, we spoke about all those things that we spoke about earlier being these 1%ers. Breathing was just in this bucket that's like, oh, well, it's not running fast. It's not lifting heavy weights. It's not tackling people, but it's so powerful. And there's, like I said to you before, there's not many things we can control. If there's two, it's our thoughts and our breath. Imagine not trying to understand and harness the two tools that you have at your disposal. And they're probably the two most neglected things that we do. What we think about and how we breathe. It's fucking insanity.
And then what we were just talking about before, the, water.
Yeah.
The water we put into our body. Some of the most essential things of the human life, and we don't question it.
Or just that simple concept of like, okay, nutrition, don't define it as a diet. How is the stuff that you put in your mouth every day not the most important thing above anything? How is that not a conversation?
Yeah.
Doesn't take a genius to realize things that I put in my mouth every day, what could be more important than that? It's undeniable.
It's when you really stop and think about it, it's the fuel that we put in, like it's everything, right?
What do you eat? How do you breathe? What are you thinking about?
And sleep is another big one as
Yeah,
well, right?
100%.
I think one of the biggest things that people don't do, and I, in the entrepreneurial crowd, I was like, not priding myself. I never fucking talked about it, but I was sleeping like 6.5, 7 hours a night for. 7 hours was a good night's sleep, used to be for me. Now I'm like, I don't give a fuck, bro. I'm going to try and sleep 8 hours of sleep a night. I used to really struggle to wake up in the morning and be tired for the first hour when I was doing like 6.5, 7 hours sleep. And I get it. Sometimes you're busy and you got to do that, but like prioritizing getting 8 hours of sleep, it's the easiest hack. If I get 8 hours of sleep, I'm sweet all day.
It's so underrated to the point where if you consume the right information, you can put everything aside, the diet, the training. There's no greater marker for performance and results than sleep. And again, because it's something that we just do autonomously, unconsciously, it's never going to be glorified and given the weight that it deserves. Yes, you wake up tired, but we don't perceive it the same way. We don't give it the attention that it deserves.
I think as well in like the entrepreneurial circles, you kind of like it's a badge of honor not to get enough sleep.
I love what you said. I went through this phase
Ego,
probably
right?
last year. Yeah, but I was like, I realized, I was like, holy shit, I've taken on this persona of I work really hard and it's become a double-edged sword.
Yeah.
Yes, it is a great trait that I work really hard, but now I'm living through this, I work really hard and it's become detrimental. So I had to check myself and be like, you're an idiot.
Thing, bro.
And like, look, I still do. And don't have this mastered. I wake up at 4 every day. Don't really want to wake up at 4 o'clock and I'm home at 8 o'clock. Like I don't really want to do that, but I get it done. But resilience is an opportunity and it is earned, but you don't get to be resilient if you don't put yourself in a position to express resilience.
On the breathing thing, have you got into like mouth taping or nose strips?
Yeah, fuck yeah.
Yeah, big
I love
difference.
that. So again, with tracking data, I'll tell you one thing about this, and you've probably experienced this. Most people I know have tried this and then scrapped it because they say that mentally it fucked me. If I had a bad night's sleep, my whole day would be wrong because I'm like, so my hack, and this is the way I think, this is a example. So my hack is, okay, that day I wake up and I had the shittest sleep on this thing. How am I going to react? I'm not going to go around telling everyone how I had a shit sleep and my day's over. I'm going to purposely have the best day. So then when this happens again, I can say, but I had a mad day when that happened.
Yeah.
And I've just reverse engineered and hacked the whole thing.
Yeah,
It only has to make sense to me.
part, right?
Exactly right.
100%.
So like, fuck you. I'm going to hack this. I'm going to have a cracker day. And then when this happens again, I'm like, oh yeah, but I've already been through this and actually I was sweet. So I don't want to do it. I certainly don't want to do it 2, 3, 4 times because that'll be detrimental, but I'm good if it comes up.
That's really good, and that's a good perspective for me to take because I don't always check my work first thing in the morning, but like sometimes when I do and the metrics aren't where I want them to be, your mind plays tricks on you and you can very easily manifest, okay, I was feeling fine. I've read this, my recovery is low, my heart rate variability is down, my resting heart rate's up. I'm like, fuck, I must be getting sick. And it never happens. Well, very rarely does it happen,
Beat
right?
the system.
But it's almost put the idea in my head. So I understand where your mate's coming from.
Of course.
Yeah.
But
interesting.
that was my choice. I was like, well, I'm going to beat the system. The system is my brain.
Yes.
I'm going to have a mad day and go against every instinctive thought that I had that was like, well, you should be tired.
One of the quotes, I had some quotes like some of the things that you spoke about, not like anything groundbreaking, but like some of the things that stood out. It's like your thoughts dictate your reality. I relate to that in a very business way. And if you want to be successful, you got to think and act and behave like that. But it comes down to health as well. Like I could see my work, oh shit, I'm getting sick. I'm going to be tired. I'm not going to feel good today. But no, you get to put that narrative out. And if you say, I'm feeling great, I'm going to have an awesome day and you do that, I reckon 9 times out of 10, you're going to win that battle.
Oh, I mean, perception is one of the greatest words. And the sister to perception is choices. Like how you perceive anything will be your reality, as you said. And that comes in so many different ways, a situation, a person, an experience. But the best thing about it is the odds are amazing. If this is a 50-50 choice, and I'll take those odds all day. How I perceive something, it literally comes down to, is it in a negative light or it is in a positive light or an optimistic light? Like if I give you those two choices, it's a pretty fucking easy choice that you're going to take.
Like this quote, perception is reality, is so spot on, but depending on how spiritual you are and how you want to like read into that and the way the universe is and everything is just energy vibrating and they're all full of like, you know, some people will lean into religion and that's how they'll define it. Some people will lean into more spirituality and manifestation or law of attraction. But I don't think regardless of what terminology you put on it, if you've lived and breathed the power of like, you know, your power of your mind and what comes up here then influences what comes out there and like attracts like. I don't know how to explain it. Obviously people like Dr. Joe Dispenza has like a more technical understanding the way he explains it. I don't know the way it all works, but I know it's real and it's powerful.
I think it's ironclad, to be honest.
It's crazy.
And the second quote to that is what you think you will become. Like how can you just take a second, evidence belief system.
Yep.
Take a second to think, if you want to be X, right? Let's say I want to be successful. I want money, but your thoughts are, I'm shit. I'm never going to be able to do this. How in the world can you believe that that's going to happen? How? Like, and it just needs to be that simple. And the second thing, if we were to say, all right, give me one practical nugget takeaway, change your self-talk. Mm-hmm. Be very mindful of the things that you say. We've said it before, like, I work really hard. What the fuck does that mean? Dig deeper. I used to say, someone say, oh, how are you? Yeah, fuck, man, I'm busy. That's just such a shit thing to say. So like, start to check yourself and be mindful of your self-talk. Be mindful of the things that you say in repetition. Oh, like, why do I keep saying that? What's this story that I've built up? What's this persona that I'm living through? And more often than not, unfortunately, it'll be something negative, something that is a disservice, something that doesn't add value. And just that small shift, game changer. And then you also build awareness.
It's crazy. On that quote you just gave as well, I mentioned I've done Kung Fu for like eight or so years. And part of what we learn is like ancient Chinese philosophy. And there's like these like 50 Taoist principles. And one of them, these have been passed down for thousands of years. And it's, as you think, so you are. Like this shit isn't new. Like the people that have been connected and understanding these things for thousands of years, this ain't new, right? The way technology and society has changed, it's dulled our senses down to connecting to like the natural way of the world.
Well, it's the same with that stoic mentality. Like all of those stoic principles, like, mate, this guy had it figured out long before we came along. The difference that I see now is we're battling the external world, right? And I'll give you two references to that. When we come into this world, we do not have a choice on our experience, what we're influenced by, what our environment is, who's mentoring us, what our education is. And that is for the first phase of our life. Teenage years, you're still very much bound by that, but you break out a little bit, you make some mistakes, you learn some shit. During your 20s, obviously, that's heightened. Now you're really starting to explore. The mistakes are 10x'd, but you start to learn about yourself. When you get to my age, and I'm sure I'll have this conversation again in 10 years, but you start to understand yourself. And the way I explain it, now this goes a little bit deeper, but if someone was to ask me what's the meaning of life, I would say we come into this world, but we're all the same. If you think about when it all started, it was one cell, one organism, we're all the same. You come into this world, who you are, and you lose yourself because you have no say in what you do, who you become, what you think. And you have to go through this journey to make mistakes, fail, lose yourself, to ultimately find yourself. And the whole journey is just so you can truly express who you are in a world that does completely shelters us from that opportunity, whether it be judgment, whether it be our environment. So we are on this journey to finally return to who we are with the goal of just being able to express ourselves. And that's why I spoke about when you find environments where you can truly be yourself with no judgment and acceptance, there's nothing better than that. And I've experienced that in pockets around the right people. And with that reflection, I truly believe that's what we're all embarking on. Who we are is defined, like there's something in us. You're unique, I'm unique. But we've got to battle our early years of life and the world around us to try and find out who that person is and actually express who that person is. And if you get to that point, I think you've figured it out. I think that's life.
Yeah, bro, spot on. What a way I think to end as well and to start to wrap up, because I couldn't have said it better, man. I think everyone goes on that journey, and I think the purpose of life, I don't know the purpose of life, but I think like our individual purpose of life, a big part of that is exactly what you said. Figuring it out, going on your journey, seeing who you are, what's important to you, and just trying to express what truly is authentically you and not the conditioning and the patterns around you influencing that. So spot on, bro. Before we do wrap up though, what's next? What can people expect to see out of you for the next little bit? What do you got cooking?
Yeah, man. It's a good question. I'll probably finish off this the rest of this year just in the trenches. But obviously, animal fuel's a really exciting journey that I'm looking forward to go on. It's a different impact. I suppose the last few years in terms of impact on people has been physical, very tangible. So I'm looking forward to educating. And as always, like I don't claim to know everything. I speak from experience. I know that I have a presence and a voice, but this for me is using that to highlight and educate a different pathway, a different ideology, something that's really worked well for me. And obviously working with Lockie, who has a different perspective with autoimmune disease and sickness. Just really excited around bringing that to life for people. And as always, altitude training is something that I'm really passionate about. I know that platform is going to do some great things in the future. So for me, just gearing up for a big 2025, get people eating some more meat, and that'll be a win.
Let's go, brother. And best place for people to find you and Animal Fuel, where's that?
Yeah, on Instagram's the best place. So at Animal Fuel and at Sandor_Earl. So yeah, just trying to definitely trying to lean into using the content as more of a vehicle, not only to educate and inspire a little bit, but take people on the journey. So yeah, check it out.
And I usually leave it there, but because we've talked about so many things, who are some of your favorite follows? You mentioned Huberman. I mentioned like Dave Asprey and heaps of people out there. Who's some of your favorite accounts to follow? The Carnivore Aurelius one has obviously got some good value.
Man,
any that come to head, I know I'm putting you on the spot.
I know. If you have put me on the spot, I'm trying to think. I don't know what comes to mind. You've got me.
Give us one, bro. Give us one.
What's one? Who do I consume most of my information off? Oh.
Put some thinking music on and
I'm trying to think who I follow from at least like in that space. I feel like one that's in that carnivore space is How To Carnivore. They're really good. You know, I'm a big fan of in terms of podcasts that I listen to a lot is that Chris Williams.
Oh yeah. Modern Wisdom.
Yeah,
he's cool.
I like him. I just like the way he asks questions and the way that he talks to people.
I come across one I sent you. Did you see what I sent yesterday, bro? Have a look at it. He was on Joe Rogan's podcast like last week. Sean Ryan, the Sean Ryan show.
Great.
I just literally the last couple of days got on him. Wow, really cool. I'm keen to explore that more. Another one that's cool that I started getting into the last couple of months. Some stuff I don't love, but other things I'm really into. Mark Gagnon or something. He's got like Camp Gagnon. He's like one of Andrew Schultz's boys, the guy with like the long curly hair. He's got a really cool podcast where like they've set up like a tent TP thing and they talk about all different things, conspiracies and CIA this and what's that, remote viewing and all that sort of stuff.
Sick.
Bro, you think all this stuff is bullshit. The American government for decades in the 70s, 80s invested like millions and millions, probably billions of dollars in studying remote viewing and how that all works. And there was real results from that. They obviously didn't they wanted to keep that under wraps. But all this shit, it's like, bro, what exists in this world? It's a bit much sometimes. So I just try and do my own thing and enjoy life. But we'll leave it there, brother. We'll do a part 3 in another year or so. Thank you, bro. Appreciate it. Legend.
Appreciate you.
All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode or you got something out of it, do yourself a favor, do me a favor, do your friends a favor and share this with them and they can come along on this journey with us. Thanks again and I'll see you next time.